Hello everyone, welcome to English Meow. Today, I'm going to share Isabella's journey of learning English with you. Let's explore the methods she used to learn while listening to her slow-paced English reading.
My name is Isabella, and my journey with English listening began when I decided I wanted to explore the world of art beyond Italy. I grew up in Florence, surrounded by history, museums, and countless masterpieces. Art had always been my passion, and I dreamed of visiting international exhibitions, attending lectures in different countries, and connecting with artists and historians from around the world. But I quickly realized that English was the key to accessing this global world. Without it, I would be limited to reading translations or missing important information. The idea was exciting, but also intimidating, because listening comprehension had always been my weakest skill. In high school, I had learned English mainly through textbooks. We memorized grammar rules, practiced reading, and wrote essays, but listening and speaking were hardly emphasized. I could understand written instructions or answer questions on tests, but when I heard someone speak naturally, I often felt lost. Even simple conversations in English seemed like a foreign rhythm I couldn't catch. I remember listening to recordings for homework, trying to follow along, but the words seemed to rush past me faster than I could process. I knew that if I wanted to engage with the international art community, I would need to overcome this barrier. When I entered university to study art history, the need for English became even more urgent. Most of the books and journals I wanted to read were in English, and many of my professors encouraged us to follow international publications. At first, I relied heavily on translation tools and slowly deciphered texts word by word. It was exhausting, but I started noticing patterns. Technical art terms like composition, medium, perspective, and aesthetic kept recurring across articles. I began keeping a notebook where I recorded new words, their meanings, and example sentences from my readings. This notebook became my daily companion, and reviewing it helped me connect the words I read with their pronunciation and use in context. To improve listening, I began watching English language documentaries about famous painters, museums, and art history. At first, I could understand almost nothing without subtitles. The narrators spoke so quickly, using vocabulary I wasn't familiar with, and it often felt overwhelming. I remember watching a documentary about the Renaissance and feeling frustrated that I could only catch a few words, like Michelangelo or Sistine Chapel. Yet I kept going, listening repeatedly to the same segments. First, I tried to catch the main idea. Then I focused on details I had missed. Finally, I repeated the sentences aloud, trying to mimic pronunciation and rhythm. Gradually, the sounds of English became less intimidating, and I started recognizing familiar words more quickly. I also discovered that immersion in English outside the classroom was essential. I listened to podcasts about art history while walking across campus, played English music in my room, and even changed my phone language to English. Small, daily exposures added up over time. I started noticing that I could understand short conversations in English when interacting with international students at university events. Each small success gave me a sense of accomplishment and motivated me to keep practicing. I began to see that learning to listen in English was not about perfection, but about persistence and consistent exposure. As I progressed through my university years, I realized that passive listening, just hearing English, was not enough. I needed to engage actively with the language. I started keeping a small journal where I wrote down expressions, idioms, and technical terms I heard in lectures, documentaries, or conversations with international students. Whenever I encountered a word or phrase I didn't fully understand, I would note it, look up its meaning, and practice using it in sentences related to art. This practice connected listening with speaking and writing, allowing me to internalize both meaning and pronunciation. I also devoted time to watching English language lectures and online museum tours. Initially, the speed of native speakers intimidated me. I could catch a few words, but the rest seemed like a blur. I learned to break the material into small segments, listening multiple times. The first time, I focused on the general idea. The second time, I tried to catch specific terms, and the third time, I repeated phrases aloud, mimicking pronunciation and intonation. This method not only improved my comprehension, but also helped me become more confident in speaking, as I could now recognize patterns and sentence structures in real-time conversations. Music became another essential tool. I started listening to English songs while sketching or painting in my studio. At first, I followed along with lyrics, reading each word carefully. After a few weeks, I could sing along and understand the meaning of entire verses. Music trained my ear to recognize rhythm, intonation, and commonly used expressions, which later made listening to spoken English less intimidating. I discovered that listening improvement could be both educational and enjoyable when combined with activities I loved. Social interaction played a critical role in my learning. I made friends with international students and joined art clubs where English was the main language of communication. At first, I mostly listened, afraid of making mistakes or misunderstanding jokes. But over time, I learned to ask politely for clarification, using phrases like, "Could you repeat that, please?" Or, "I didn't catch the last part. Can you explain?" Most people were patient and encouraging, which made it easier to participate. By actively engaging in conversations, I learned idioms, slang, and natural expressions that textbooks rarely taught. I also realized the importance of patience and persistence. Progress in listening was gradual. Some days I felt frustrated when I couldn't follow a lecture or understand a fast conversation. Other days, I would be surprised to realize I had comprehended almost everything without effort. I began celebrating small victories, understanding a museum guide's explanation, following a podcast, or even catching a joke in a casual conversation. These moments motivated me and reinforced the idea that consistent practice, no matter how small, accumulates over time into significant improvement. Through these experiences, I noticed that my confidence was growing alongside my listening skills. I no longer avoided English conversations or events where international guests were present. Instead, I sought opportunities to engage, practice, and learn. Each interaction, whether successful or challenging, was a step forward. Listening had become more than a skill. It was a bridge to the global art world I had always dreamed of being part of. By the time I entered my third year of university, my listening skills had improved considerably, but I still faced challenges in fast-paced conversations and academic discussions. Lectures on contemporary art or international exhibitions often featured rapid speech and specialized vocabulary. At first, I struggled to follow, missing details or feeling lost in the middle of explanations. I realized that understanding every word was impossible and that I needed to focus on key ideas, intonation, and context. This shift in perspective helped me stay engaged without feeling overwhelmed, allowing me to follow discussions more effectively. I also started attending workshops and seminars hosted in English, sometimes with guest speakers from other countries. At first, I felt anxious, worrying that I might not understand or respond appropriately. But I reminded myself that mistakes were part of learning. I began taking careful notes, jotting down unfamiliar words and expressions, and reviewing them afterward. Over time, I noticed that I could catch more words in real time, understand the overall ideas, and even respond thoughtfully. These experiences taught me that active listening is not only about hearing, but also about thinking and connecting ideas quickly. Travel continued to be a major factor in improving my listening. I visited London, Paris, and New York to attend art exhibitions, workshops, and gallery openings. Each trip presented unique challenges, different accents, colloquial expressions, and speaking speeds. I vividly remember standing in a New York gallery, listening to a curator explain a modern art installation. At first, I could only catch fragments, but by focusing on keywords, observing gestures, and listening for tone, I gradually understood the full explanation. That moment gave me immense satisfaction and made me realize how far my listening skills had progressed since my first hesitant conversations in English. Media and social practice remained essential. I continued listening to podcasts, watching interviews with artists, and following online art lectures. I began challenging myself with faster content, trying to understand without subtitles. Shadowing exercises, repeating sentences immediately after hearing them, became a daily habit. This trained my ear to pick up pronunciation nuances and speech rhythms, and I found myself predicting sentence structures more naturally. Music also helped me remain relaxed while improving comprehension. Songs with storytelling lyrics allowed me to recognize words and phrases in context, connecting, listening to emotion and expression. One of the most impactful breakthroughs happened when I collaborated on an international project with students from different countries. The discussion was fast and full of technical terms and idioms. Initially, I felt overwhelmed, but I reminded myself to focus on the main ideas and ask for clarification when necessary. By the end of the project, I could participate confidently, contribute ideas, and communicate effectively. That experience reinforced my belief that listening is not about perfection. It is about understanding enough to engage meaningfully and connect with others. Through all these experiences, I realized that progress comes from consistent effort, exposure, and patience. Listening was no longer a source of anxiety, but a gateway to experiences, friendships, and opportunities in the international art world. I began to see English not as a barrier, but as a bridge, connecting me to the global environment I had always dreamed of joining. By the time I completed my final year at university, my English listening skills had transformed completely. I could follow lectures effortlessly, understand fast conversations with classmates, and even participate in international seminars without feeling anxious. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that the progress I had made was not sudden or miraculous. It was the result of consistent practice, exposure, and a willingness to embrace challenges and mistakes. Each small step, from listening to podcasts while commuting to repeating sentences from documentaries, contributed to the growth I now took for granted. One of the most important lessons I learned is that listening is about understanding meaning, context, and emotion, not just individual words. Early in my journey, I often tried to understand every single word, which left me frustrated and exhausted. Over time, I've realized that focusing on the main ideas, observing gestures, and paying attention to tone and expression were far more effective strategies. This shift allowed me to enjoy conversations and lectures without feeling overwhelmed, and it helped me engage more confidently in discussions about art, history, and culture. Immersion became a key part of my learning process. I created an environment where English surrounded me daily. I listened to podcasts, watched English language art documentaries, followed lectures online, and even changed my social media and devices to English. Small, daily exposures built a foundation that made real-life interactions smoother and less intimidating. I also practiced shadowing and repeating phrases aloud, which improved my pronunciation, rhythm, and natural understanding of spoken English. Over time, I noticed that I could predict sentence structures and recognize familiar expressions almost instinctively. Social interaction was equally crucial. Engaging with international students, attending gallery events, and participating in art workshops provided opportunities to test my listening in real time. I learned to ask politely for repetition or clarification and to rely on context when I didn't understand every word. Making mistakes became a tool for learning rather than a source of embarrassment. Each conversation, whether perfectly executed or not, strengthened my confidence and reinforced my skills. I began to approach every interaction as a chance to practice and improve. Travel also continued to play a vital role. Visiting exhibitions in different countries exposed me to a variety of accents, speaking speeds, and cultural contexts. Each interaction required careful attention and adaptation. I vividly remember explaining my research on Renaissance art to a group of international students and curators. Initially, I feared I wouldn't be understood, but the conversation flowed naturally, and I realized how much my listening and speaking skills had improved. That moment was a testament to the years of dedicated practice and persistent effort. Looking back, I can say that learning to listen in English has given me far more than a language skill. It has opened doors to the international art world, allowed me to connect with people from diverse cultures, and enabled me to access knowledge I would never have reached otherwise. Listening is no longer a source of fear, but a bridge to opportunity, learning, and connection. It has transformed the way I experience the world and has given me the confidence to pursue my dreams without hesitation. If I could give advice to anyone beginning this journey, I would say, immerse yourself in the language, embrace mistakes, celebrate small victories, and practice consistently. Listen actively, seek real-life opportunities, and be patient with yourself. Improvement comes gradually, but with persistence, the results are remarkable. English listening has changed my life, and I know that anyone with dedication and patience can achieve the same.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to listen to Isabella's experience of learning English today. I hope that after hearing her learning journey, it will be helpful for your own English studies. But please remember, no matter what, never stop learning. One day, you will see a unique version of yourself.